Hi everyone, women, men, everyone in tech. It's super wonderful to be here, and I'm super excited for this final chapter of this great event. Let's wrap up the evening with a panel discussion regarding the gender bias in technology, and let's really deep dive into the topic and try to find out what are the deep root causes for gender bias in technology. So we have amazing panelists today. We have Susanna Bairoh from TEK, Academic Researchers, Finland, joining us online. It's great to have you on board, Susanna. Can you hear us well? Perfect.
Yes, I can hear you really well.
And then we have Marja Dunderfelt from Huawei Technologies. She has an extensive career of 20 years in cybersecurity. It's really amazing to have you here as well. And then we have Kenigbolo, Meya from BCaster. You're a front-end engineer at the company, and it's an AI-based media platform, right?
Yes.
And I'm Reetta Heiskanen. I'm a journalist at Helsingin Sanomat, following business, tech, and politics at the moment. And yeah, let's actually jump on with the first question that we have in the online poll today. So remember that you have the online poll that you can all participate in and keep voting. So the first question is, in your opinion, does gender bias exist in technology? And please answer yes or no, so we will follow up with the answers. So yeah, let's start the evening with Susanna. You've actually worked in technology for 20 years, researching these different topics. And let's start with a very simple question. Do you think, is there a gender bias in technology?
Yes, and in my view, the question is rather what kind of bias, to what extent, where, and how does it manifest? Because statistics and research show us, for example, that it's not that difficult for a woman to start a career in technology, but advancing on that career, staying on that career often seems a lot harder.
What do you think, Marja? Is there a gender bias in technology field, and how does it show?
Well, actually, I could say, as I actually underline everything that and all the questions that what is it and what it actually means, like Susanna said. But yes, there is actually. There are unfortunately some gender bias in the technology field. And as an example, there are, if we are looking from the females and males, there are biases in roles and responsibilities, for example. There are differences in positions, there are differences in salaries, etc., in benefits. So those are as an example given. Yeah.
Kenigbolo, what are your thoughts?
So personally, I think it actually exists. I think it's been it's a fundamental part of the industry that needs to change. And I can cite an example. I was speaking in Croatia about a year ago, and having a conversation with one of the engineers there, who I could tell from the conversation that she was super smart. She said she did go for an interview, and she could actually hear some men on the team saying they don't want to have a woman on their team. Not because she's not qualified, but because she's a woman, and they don't want to have a girl on their team. So yes, these biases exist, and we don't talk about them enough. Yeah.
That's a horrifying example, and I think by now we've heard all the numbers during the night that are very, very depressing. So as Yasin Sam said, only 5% of the leadership positions in technology are actually held by women, and only 1% of female founders actually get VC funding. 93% goes to all male tech teams. Susanna, what do you think? Why is this?
Well, just reflecting on what Marja was saying also, that and Kenigbolo, that research shows that gender matters in really many ways. So who is recruited, who is selected for demanding project, who is seen to be capable for leadership, and what kind of salary the person then gets. To me, the crux of the problem is how competence in technology is gendered, meaning that a woman often has to prove she's competent, whereas for a man, the assumption is that, of course, he's competent. And international research, for example, from the US, UK, Sweden, even from Finland, has shown that this intertwining of masculinity and technological competence really impacts women's careers in technology. And it's really interesting that the more a field is considered like deeply technical, the stronger seems this linkage with masculinity be. And IT and ICT are actually really good examples.
So basically, women are thought of not being capable enough for actually taking on a leadership role, for example. Marja, have you noticed the same in cybersecurity? For example, you work at Huawei in a very high leadership position.
Yes, I'm actually very new in Huawei, but I have a 20 year of experience of leadership positions in multinational companies, leading security organizations. And I must say that in my 20-year career, I have never ever met any issues, and that's for truth. So when it comes to that, naturally, when I'm a woman, I have to show my capabilities in a better manner, so that I have to show that I'm capable of leading the teams, leading the security area. So I have to do more than a male, for example, in a position. But when it comes to the security and where I have been working for 20 years, I have been working in a very, it's a very male-oriented area, and it is definitely.
Absolutely.
Yes, and when you are working there as a woman, for example, in my early stages of my career, I had to meet military representatives, governmental representatives, and when I started to have the discussions or being part of this kind of national security crisis trainings, etc., I thought myself that, okay, how do I get and how do I fit in into this? But I never had to do anything specific. I was there, and I was actually treated as a colleague. So in that way, I must say that I'm surprised how my career has evolved and how I have been seen in my career path.
So you said you have to do more. Are there any compromises that you have had to do during your career in technology?
Not really.
That's great.
I must say that not really.
What about Kenigbolo? You described a situation in Croatia where that was a really concrete example. Have you noticed anything else? You also do a non-profit, Code Afrique, where you actually do tech education for underrepresented groups. Are there any examples, for example, from that group that you've noticed?
Well, so I can say for sure that we have all through the existence of Code Afrique, which is almost 3 years now, we've never been able to have a female come through. And now I would like to go a bit deeper into this, because it's not just about saying we want more women, it's about the orientation that we give to women at a very young age. Now, if you take movies, for example, when young girls watch TV shows and all of that, what you find is every time you have a sex scene, it's always men, right? And young girls would actually grow up seeing this as a field that's supposed to be for boys. Like she pointed out, it's seen like the more technical it gets, the more masculine it gets. However, this is not the case, because as a front-end engineering lead, some of my best role models are all women. And on Twitter, for example, sometimes I say, I'm stuck at a problem, and the first thing that comes to my mind is, how would Melanie Sumner do this? Melanie works with accessibility. She works at LinkedIn, and she is the Microsoft representative to WCAG. Now, if we do not try to figure the issues out from the root cause, we would go on and say, oh, we need more women to come through. How many women are actually getting into tech schools? And why are they not getting into tech schools? These are like some fundamental parts of it that we need to figure out. So these things actually exist, and they're always concrete examples. I'm a typical example because I've never been able to get a woman through. I've had a lot of women apply, but never been able to see one woman go through the entire 4 months of our bootcamp. And not because they're not capable, but rather because they see this field as something that is more male-dominated. They wouldn't get as much interviews as their male counterparts will get. A concrete example is 2 people with the same qualifications, the same skills, applying, and the male is actually invited for the interview, the female is not invited. It happens here in Finland, actually.
Before jumping back to you, Susanna, let's go through the actual stats that we got from the poll. So in your opinion, does gender bias exist in technology? 96% said yes, and 3% said no. So we definitely have a problem here. Susanna, what are some concrete examples that you've noticed in work life and in your research?
So as said, so there are these issues on recruitment and then on how to advance in one's career. But as Kenigbolo was saying, it already starts earlier, of course. So it starts already from who selects maths in high school and all that. But as said, so I think although it starts really early, so there are studies that start already like from, how small boys and girls interact with toys and all these kind of things. But it's also really about how we grow into being men and women in our different societies and what kind of possibilities are seen to be there for a woman and for a man, and how they then shape what we see to be possible.
So it has also a lot to do with representation, what we see in the world, what we think is possible by the examples that we see. Marja, how did you actually end up in the field? Did you see someone that inspired you to actually take on a career in technology?
No, actually not, because I don't have any technology university degree. I have only for the security part university degrees, but I'm not technician. I don't know anything about coding, and I have never ever needed that in my career path. And when I was at school thinking about before my 20-year career, or even when I started to think of what I become as an adult, I never thought that I would be in a technology company or even in this kind of high positions, leading teams or this kind of important area, leading the important area. I never dreamt about it. So there was one person when I entered. I have been working in Operator for whole my career, and there was one person, and that was my manager. And my manager actually, he was a male, and he saw possibilities in me. And then he started to advertise trainings in security area. So he has actually been one of the persons who actually put me in this kind of, path. And I started in very low positions, as I mentioned. There are roles and responsibilities, deviations in females and males. But I started gradually get high positions and higher positions, more responsibilities. And one of the things I want to highlight here that I never ever applied for those positions. So I was always told that, okay, Marja, there is a possibility for you. Would you like to take that? And naturally, as someone here said, that think about, was it Mario that said at the beginning that think about a little bit before you say no. I never said no. I said, yes, I'm ready for that. So that's how I do it. And that's how my career has actually involved and why I'm here. I'm very interested about technology. I have been privileged to work with the very skilled employees, all technicians. When we are talking about cybersecurity, etc., it's all about technology, but it's not all about technology. It's also knowing the business, etc., etc. But I have been privileged to work with the technicians, and they have taught me what I know now, today.
What would be your 2 cents for a woman in technology actually struggling to proceed in their career, getting promoted in a big company such as Google or Huawei or others?
Achieve your dreams, because you never know what will happen if you try what you actually do. And I think that what I have done my work as good as I can. And as I told for one of the newspaper interviewer that I have done my work so that I can actually look back, so that there is nothing to someone to say that, okay, something has been, done wrong, or it has gone to the wrong direction. So I think that that's one of the things. Do your things and do them good.
Have you noticed anything such as, should women be more pushy? Should they be more aggressive inside the organization?
Well, I am a strong personality. I don't know if that's something to do with this, where I'm today, but I'm very strong. And there was among my staff, there was saying, even though my clothes are black, but I was called, I didn't take this as a wrong way, but I was a black bitch. So it goes like, I had even a coffee mug saying that who I am. So yes, you have to be strong, but you also have to be, you have to stand behind your words, and you have to take your positions. You don't have to be cruel, but you need to know what you are doing.
What about Kenigbolo? What really drove you to be a front-end engineer?
Well, so my career didn't start off in front-end engineering. I was actually in med school, but I loved playing video games, and eventually I just wanted to fix things. I needed to browse on my phone, and I couldn't buy the credits I needed because my mother was angry with me. So I decided to hack the network and try to browse for free. And that was how I actually started coding. I've started from networking. I used to work with ISPs and set up servers, and then I got into back-end engineering, and then I got to front-end engineering. So it's not been the traditional path. My background is in tech, actually. My bachelor's and my master's are both in IT and software engineering management. So my background is purely tech, but it wasn't the traditional path. I got into this industry out of curiosity about video games, actually. Yeah.
And Susanna, you've studied both at the University of Helsinki, Faculty of Social Sciences, and currently finishing your doctoral studies at Hanken. Was it an easy jump to join the technology field as a research manager, or have you had any difficulties?
Okay, this is a surprising question because, unlike others, perhaps I'm not that comfortable about talking about myself. But yeah, so actually, how it happened was that while I was studying at the university for my master's degree, I started to work in an association that is now called Tieke, which is the development center for, at the time it was information technology, now it's for information society. And what I realized by the time I got my master's that, yes, I have been studying social policy, sociology, social psychology, some development is what I know about is actually how to work with IT and IT companies and IT organizations. And then I sort of continued on that path. And so first I was working as an analyst and then as a research manager in a marketing and consulting company focusing on ICT field. And then from there, then joined tech about 9 years ago. So on that, so I have sort of been working around tech all of my career. But yeah, I was actually like when the question, I mean, there was the campaign at, are you like, am I a woman in tech? I had to like really think, am I a woman in tech? Not still sure.
Good question. Before jumping into the next question, let's check the online poll again. Please vote, people that are online. The next question is, have you experienced gender discrimination in the workplace? This is a really interesting one, so let's see what people vote. And yeah, so as has been mentioned today, 19% of the new students actually entering the technology field are only women. That is not a very good percentage. As you, Susanna, mentioned, there are problems in the education landscape in that sense that not enough women are actually interested in entering as technology students. What could be done to improve that? Kenigbolo.
Well, I think it again goes back to the fundamentals. So for something like this, I would like to use Finland as a classical example. If you go back to the 2000s, when Taija was president, what you can see over the years, up till this point today, is that you have more women in parliament. It has grown over the years. And how does that happen? Take those who were born between 1980 and 1990. Someone who was born In 1990, it was 10 when Taya was president. So you have grown up to see that women can actually be presidents, women can be politicians, women can be policymakers. Growing up and seeing that you have reference points. So it's very difficult for someone to tell you, no, you can't be president. But my daughter would go and say, oh, of course I can be president. I can be prime minister. Sana is prime minister. Right. So it's about making sure that we create an environment and situation where women can actually aspire to be. So it's like, again, the example I made with the movie, right? You watch a TV show, and whenever you see someone hacking, by the way, those things are quite crap anyways, but whenever you see those kind of environments, it's always male-dominated, right? Someone asked me, my cousin asked me if I would like my daughter to be a software engineer, and I said no. Not with the way the industry is shaped right now. There's so much gaslighting, and there's so much a woman has to go through to actually get herself through the door. So I think it's about fundamentals. Again, I'm coming back to the fundamentals because I think how a child is shaped and the kind of confidence a child has growing up, it's a very important part of them actually seeing that they belong in industry. Because if they can see role models, if they can actually be confident enough and know that this is not, regardless of what they say, I've seen people who are like me do it, I can do it, then it makes it easier. So again, for me, it's back to the fundamentals. We need to make the field, we need to remove the myth that tech and IT in general is as a masculine field, because some of the best engineers I know are actually women.
Marja, what do you think could be done in the education space to improve this?
Well, as I said, I have not ever been myself in technology. I have not studied as for example, you have, or Susanna have. But I think that when it comes to, as you said, we have to change the ideology when it comes to the technology. Talking about men and women, we should forget that. We are humans, we are people, we are equal skilled, we have the same capabilities. And when it comes to that, we women, sometimes we want to have something which is more interesting. We want to see the value, for example, what you do. It was presented in the first panelist, Anna-Mari was it? Yeah, so you have to see the end goal, for example. So from that angle, if we change somehow the educational level, perhaps there is more interest from the women to participate and take part of those. Yeah.
Susanna's question was brilliant in that sense, that how to actually make it more inclusive, that the tech field could be even larger, that it could spread out. It wouldn't be only engineers, but humanists, philosophists, journalists would actually feel like women in tech, and all kinds of researchers. Do you have any concrete ideas how to make this happen? Bring on the philosophers and humanists and the next generation of tech.
Was that to me?
You can start.
Okay, thanks. I have been thinking about this a lot, and I think one thing is really to create this understanding or advance the understanding that it's actually quite hard to do anything that has not to do with technology. It's like everything is tech. I was interviewing young girls for a project in about 2010, and there were several of them who said that, well, I want a career in, for instance, designing clothes, so I don't need anything that has to do with technology, or that I want to be a musician because I want to be creative, so I don't need to do anything with technology. And I'm like looking at them, and do you actually know how they do those things nowadays? I mean, you really need technology in most things you do. So it's really important that we have people who are passionate about whatever topic that they're passionate about involved in creating the technology that then enables them to do things better.
Well said. Let's check the online poll answers actually at this point. So have you experienced gender discrimination in the workplace? 61% of you said yes. 38, almost 39% said no. What kind of feelings rise from these answers, Marja?
I'm surprised looking from my career perspective. So this has been also, naturally I have studied the articles and all the studies and everything, and I know the figures and everything, but this is crucial. This is something that I need to look into in more depth, yes.
So many companies are actually using unconscious bias trainings to get to the root problem of if they have some kind of biases when recruiting, when giving funding, when finding new startups, doing the deal flow. Do you have any experience in how do these unconscious bias trainings work? And should they be implemented even wider in the society? Kenigbolo, what are your thoughts on the unconscious bias trainings?
Well, I think it's vital. It's vital. It's important to have this kind of trainings. What I can't say is to how well the results of these trainings are. But personally, for example, I think that having this kind of trainings at least brings the topic out, right? It makes us talk about it because, in principle, a lot of the times the discussion is not about is there gender bias or is there no gender bias? Do I have unconscious bias? Do I not have any bias at all? Some people, when we say unconscious, we're talking about people not knowing, right? So if there's one thing I'm glad about it is that it's actually bringing this discussion to the forefront. As to the results of it, I can't really say much on that because I can't say that it will give or it will bring about some very positive change. And I'm saying this knowing that I work in a field that is male dominated and one that is currently very difficult to change. So I can't say for sure how much of a change this will bring. What I can say for sure is that it's important because it's actually bringing out the conversation and informing people that there is a bias that actually exists, regardless if you know about it or not.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts, Marja?
Well, I could say yes, the companies are implementing this kind of training sessions, but what is then changed after that? Are the policies, how those are implemented, instructions and trainings and how those are followed, etc. So I think that the important part is here, that yes, you can state on stage and you can say that our company, we have this and this and this trainings, but what actually is changed and what's the influence on those trainings to the company?
Susanna, what are your thoughts on the unconscious bias trainings?
Yeah, I think you're really hitting on important points there, that yes, they can be helpful, but they need to be part of like an overall strategy towards inclusion. And that means that the company needs to define and communicate why the work culture needs improvement, and that it is not about trying to classify you as a good or bad person, but like as Kenigbolo was also saying, to recognizing that we all have biases anyway. So it's really good to be aware of them. And that also when part of this strategy towards inclusion would need these targets, and then how are they going to be implemented? So I think we had really good examples from Google and Accenture today about how this can be done.
So there's this wonderful book by Caroline Criado Perez called Invisible Women, where she actually describes a world where 47% of, for example, women get injured in a car accident more likely than men, and a doctor might prescribe drugs that haven't actually been invented for the female body. This is an interesting question, but do you actually feel like the technology world has been designed for you? Susanna, you can start.
Short answer, probably not. But yeah, I love the book also. And it has such a. My problem is that reading it, I always get stuck in the sources and start to actually track down the original articles and so on. So I only can read like half an hour at the time of the actual text. But anyway, so there are a lot of things that one has seen now over over the years that really could have been designed better, and that make you think, like, I think Yasin-san was making this really good point, that it's not like the technology sort of as such is racist or I would say gender biased, but then if it has not been tested and designed for like more diverse group of users, and if the biases of the developers are not taken into account, then the end result might be that it is racist or gender biased or other things, unfortunately.
Marja, what are you really excited for the next decade of technology? Let's try to wrap up in a more kind of into the future looking question.
The next decade. Naturally, from the discussions that we have had today, I would like to see women part of those, but I would like also to see that the technology is transferred so that it actually enables more and benefits more lives and eases, the use, it eases people's daily life shortly. Yes.
Kenigbolo, what are you looking forward to?
I would say I'm looking forward to a more diversified technology industry. I think a fundamental part of it will be making people understand that being in tech is not just about writing code. I think that's a major flaw. Some of the best technical writers you have today are journalists who actually moved from journalism into technical writing. And technical writing is a fundamental part of the industry, because if you see the kind of documentation some engineers write, you would understand why I'm saying that.
Underline.
So I think I look forward to an industry where we diversify and it's more inclusive in the future.
And Susanna, what are you excited about?
Yeah, I would like to see the change that Kenigbolo was just describing, and also what Marja was saying about the usability of technology, because I think that's one thing that would increase the interest of women towards technology, is really that what you can do with it, not only like what it is. And then I think that one of the starting points that we have is really that to recognize that although we usually say here that like, okay, well, equality has been achieved or technology is gender neutral, but no, it's not. So we really need to like start from looking at these biases that we have and understanding the situation. And although Marja has had a really good career, so there are a lot of others who haven't or who have faced problems. So it's also to recognize that there are a lot of problems, but we can fix them if we really try to work together on that.
Perfect. Let's recognize the problems and fix them. Thank you so much for our wonderful panelists. Total all-star tech panel with wonderful people. And thank you, and let's build the next generation of technology.
Thank you, Reetta.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.